Welcome my fellow Star Wars fans to my Star Wars Rebels Strength and Power tier list. This is the second video in my series to create the true Ultimate Star Wars Strength ranking. I will be following similar rules to my Star Wars The Clone Wars list, so make sure you watch that one if you haven't already. The Trooper tier is for characters roughly on par with standard soldiers, such as Stormtroopers. Stormtroopers seems better than your standard B1 battle droid, but they aren't quite as good as Clone Troopers.
The Clone Trooper is, at a base level, a significantly better trooper than a Stormtrooper.
Absolutely.
Because they're born to do it, they're bred to do it, it's their whole life. Where Stormtroopers are like, they have to serve.
Leia took out 2 Stormtroopers, but they were unarmed and she looked like she had some trouble handling her weapon. Ryder can snipe his opponents from afar, though his aim didn't seem much better than a Stormtrooper's.
You're right.
Melch could take out Stormtroopers, but he can be a bit reckless. Luckily for him, he has the power of being in a kid's show.
Just look at Melch. He's positively magnetic.
I'm sure you've got a special relationship, Hondo.
Mart was able to take some Stormtroopers out. Lando is a slippery smuggler and a good shot. Hondo has more showings than Lando, and let's be honest, pirates are cooler than smugglers. As Morgan may be heavyset, but he's mobile, and he got the drop on Zeb during a firefight. He kicked a piece of equipment that would have taken Season 2 Ezra out if Hondo hadn't pushed him out of the way and taken the hit himself. As Morgan may not have the power of the Force, but he has the power of mass. But Chopper has the power of crazy, causing As Morgan to run in fear. Chopper has taken out many Imperials throughout his career, plus he has the power to fly. Seevor is a slippery fighter that was able to give Season 4 Ezra a bit of trouble. Fearnox are ferocious beasts that can fight their way through blaster fire and take out Stormtroopers. Krykna have tough exteriors that make them resistant to blaster fire. This allowed them to even get the better of Sabine and Rex when ganging up on them. Probe droids can take multiple blaster shots and can fly. Surprisingly, with enough force, even Season 3 Ezra couldn't overcome it. Imperial Super Commandos are Mandalorians who have fallen in with the Empire. They have armor made with Beskar, jetpacks, and other typical Mando gear, which makes them more dangerous than anyone in this tier. However, without their armor, they were stated to be no more than common soldiers, which is why they were kept in this tier. Rocket Troopers would likely go right under the Super Commandos, as their flight would give them a massive advantage over the characters and creatures below. Wait, they fly now? The Rebel tier is for characters that can easily take out groups of standard troopers. Wookiees are extremely strong and can toss Stormtroopers like ragdolls. If it comes to a firefight, depending on the Wookiee, they could be down a tier, but in close quarters they're most definitely up here. Imperial Sentry droids are also physically strong, with one overpowering and capturing Zeb. They can shoot and take multiple blaster shots before going down, making them more dangerous than your standard Wookiee. Ezra before his Jedi training was already tapping into the Force, being able to jump extremely high and take out Stormtroopers with his energy slingshot. When in really stressful situations, he can even use telekinesis, like when he took out Agent Kallus. Further into Season 1, he got his saber gun and further improved his skills, but at that point he would likely still be somewhere in this tier, but possibly up higher. Sham Syndulla, Numa, and Gobi expertly took out Imperial troopers. They also took the Ghost Crew out, though it was a surprise betrayal. Hera was able to kill groups of Fearnox, knocked out As Morgan, punched Lando in the nuts, disarmed and punched the weenie Gal Travis, took out one of Maul's droids while handcuffed, and defeated multiple Imperials throughout the series. This is already enough to argue her in this tier, but what really gets her here is how well she fought back against Rook. She landed multiple hits and a takedown on him, while someone like Mard in the tier below was instantly taken out by Rook. Governor Price gave both Sabine and Rex a run for their money. She actually would have killed Rex if it hadn't been for the extremely smart and capable Lieutenant List, stunning her from behind. I put Rex a spot above her as he got the better of Price, knocking her down, and she only turned it around because he happened to knock her right next to a gun. Rex may not be quite what he once was, but he still got it. Wolf and Gregor would also be right around here, probably right under Rex. Saw Gerrera was able to overpower the Geonosian Click-Clack, who was able to overpower Season 3 Ezra and Chopper. Saw proved this scaling chain was no fluke, as he physically overpowered Ezra and then Rex, securing his placement above him. Ketsu was a Mandalorian bounty hunter who had the skill to single-handedly take out a group of stormtroopers who surrounded her. Fen Rao was once the leader of the Mandalorian Protectors. He proved he was skilled enough to be a Mandalorian leader by taking out an Imperial Super Commando as well as a Mando from the House of Ren. He also surprise took out Season 3 Ezra and Sabine while handcuffed. Sabine from Seasons 1 and 2 was a deadly acrobatic fighter, protected by her Mandalorian armor. She defeated Fen Rao in a quick draw duel, purposefully disarming him instead of killing him. Proach was a mining guild foreman with a whip that managed to get the better of Season 4 Kanan and gave Zeb a real run for his money. Zeb just barely managed to squeeze out the victory, which is why Proach goes below him. Agent Kallus also has an extremely close fight with Zeb and actually defeated him, though he took advantage of Zeb being off balance from an explosion. Zeb fought Kallus multiple other times and seemed to get the better of him more often than not, which is why I put him above. Zeb has incredible strength that seems to be on par with the Wookiees, and his skill makes that strength all the more dangerous. Zeb showed physical superiority over Rook once his location was revealed, and his metal bending strength is what led to Rook's demise. Infiltrator droids have even greater strength and are armed to the teeth. It took Zeb, Chopper, and AP-5 working together to take one down. Zeb did most of the work and held it down on his own, which is why I kept the droid in this tier. They have proton warheads inside them that can take out a Star Destroyer, but they have to self-destruct to use it. The Padawan tier is for characters on par with your standard Jedi Padawan. Droidekas were a threat to Season 3 Ezra, Kanan, and Rex. One overwhelmed Ezra and shot Rex's helmet off. They only managed to take it down due to its shield overheating because of its age. Droidekas aren't higher due to their lack of versatility and intelligence, as well as their weaknesses that can be exploited. Dismantler droids are nearly the size of small ships, with the strength to lift them. If their incredible strength isn't enough, they're outfitted with buzzsaws and flamethrowers. Dismantlers can take multiple blaster shots, and one would have taken out Sabine and Zeb if Rex didn't come in clutch with a crane. Thrawn is known for his incredible intellect, but he's also a deadly fighter. He stunned Ezra in a quick draw, defeated 2 sentry droids at once after they were programmed to kill him, and easily defeated the defector Kallus in hand-to-hand combat, solidifying him in the tier above.
We wanted to show that Thrawn as a threat is not just a cerebral threat. He does have a physicality to back things up as well.
He's honed himself as a weapon. As someone who is a tactician, he probably has studied all the various martial arts.
For the most part, I think he sees it as almost like a calming thing, a zen thing, and an exercise. But it also equips him well if he has to actually come to physical confrontation.
The Night Sisters that took over Sabine and Kanan's body were able to temporarily hold their own against Maul in Season 3 Ezra, but Ezra ended up defeating both of them fairly quickly once resorting to the Force. Striking them down won't actually defeat them, as they can just change bodies unless you destroy their altar, but they also can't leave their cave, so I just ranked them based on how dangerous they were while in Sabine's and Kanan's bodies. Palpatine's Royal Guards were able to resist Season 4 Ezra's Force push and restrain him with the telekinetic power of their Force pikes. If it's all 3 of them at once, they might take out anyone in this tier, but if it's just a single one of them, the characters above have the Force or gear needed to help them escape. Gar Saxon was the leader of the Imperial Mandalorians with enough physical strength to toss Season 3 Ezra like the child he is. He's outfitted with all of the standard Mandalorian gear and became an even greater threat once he got the Darksaber. Ezra by the time of Season 2 was starting to become a capable Jedi. Kallus was no longer a match for him at that point due to Ezra's ability to consistently control his Force powers. As Ezra progressed, he started to be able to hold off the Inquisitors in combat and repeatedly tied Kanan in sparring, though I believe Kanan was likely holding back. Rook is deadly dangerous in close combat, even disarming Season 4 Kanan. He can cloak himself to become even more of a threat, taking on Zeb and Sabine at the same time. Rook gave Season 4 Ezra trouble, so I think Season 2 Ezra will likely get overpowered by him. Ezra can try and take Rook out with the Force, but Rook got right up after a Force slam from Season 4 Ezra that cracked rock, so I don't think Season 2 Ezra is going to be putting him down that way. Sabine during Season 3 acquired a jetpack, gauntlets designed to fight Jedi, and the Darksaber. I believe with all of this equipment, she deserves to be in this spot. Without any of that stuff, she gave Invisible Rook trouble and countered him by planting a paint bomb on him. She got the better of Gar Saxon twice, once in hand-to-hand combat, and then again in a lightsaber duel. Kanan said in some ways she's a more capable warrior than Ezra, and that was Season 3 Ezra. I think it's highly likely using all of her gear to her advantage, Sabine at her best could beat a Season 2 Ezra. Maybe after giving up the Darksaber she would go below him, but Sabine would still be a big problem with her aerial superiority and firepower. Sabine's brother Tristan defeated her in a sparring match, so he gets an honorable mention. Their mother Ursa is also likely in this tier. Kanan as of Season 1 was rusty with his Jedi skills and mentally held back due to his fear, but he was still unquestionably the strongest of the Ghost crew at the time. He's an unorthodox fighter and isn't afraid to mix it up and use blasters to aid him during lightsaber duels. He stopped using his Jedi powers as a Padawan, so it makes sense that he stagnated at that level. He could easily defeat Agent Callus, so he's at least a tier above him. And while he could fight back against the Grand Inquisitor, he lost every time before their final fight, quite badly, so he has to at least go a tier under him.
Kanan is often outmatched by the Inquisitor, but does that have more to do with Kanan's limitations or the Inquisitor's power?
Well, I mean, it's obviously a combination of both, but I think what we can't forget about this time frame is Kanan's level of Jedi training. He never completed his Jedi training. You get the sense of that if you've read A New Dawn, but that's going to become more and more apparent as the series progresses.
He performed better each fight, and even the Grand Inquisitor noticed his growth. Maybe you could argue at the very start of Season 1 Kanan would go a bit lower, but nearing the end of Season 1 I'm pretty confident he would beat everyone below him. Here is his voice actor Freddie Prinze Jr.'s take on Kanan's power at this time.
I wouldn't say that Kanan's the best Jedi because he's not even, in my mind, a Jedi Knight yet. He's not even close to being a Jedi Master. So as far as on the power scale, he's down near the bottom, but it's his unpredictability that makes him successful in Season 1 on Rebels.
The Knight tiers for characters on the level of a Jedi deemed strong enough to be knighted. The large Fearnock seemed to do better against the Grand Inquisitor than Kanan just did right before, with it disarming the Inquisitor of the lightsaber he took from Kanan. Bonzami are another large beast that can survive being pelted by repeated blaster fire. These creatures almost made Zeb and Callus their lunch. Lothwolves are large, powerful, majestic creatures that have some connection to the Force. The White Lothwolf forced Sabine into a deep sleep and treated Rook like a chew toy, so this mighty beast has to go a tier above them. Ezra grew a great deal after the time skip from Season 2 to 3, learning from the Sith holocron. He has an innate affinity with connecting to others, and this allowed him to control different fauna. He passed out when controlling the large Fearnock in Season 1, but after the time skip he was able to control creatures as large as Purrgil. He got the better of Rook, took out 3 royal guards at once, and defeated Thrawn without his lightsaber, so it would make sense for him to be a tier above all of them. In the Night Sister episode, there are statements that could indicate Ezra is a stronger vessel than Kanan.
I will pay it, just let my friend go.
Perhaps, if you prove to be stronger.
Spirit, I am the one you want! Let him go!
Though Ezra was getting physically overpowered by the Night Sister and Kanan. Ezra needed Kanan's help to get him across a large chasm, while Kanan made it across on his own, so I definitely think Ezra was still inferior to his master. I put all of the Inquisitors above Ezra, as even though Ezra grew, he never actually proved he surpassed any of them.
Inquisitors should be able to deal with the majority of Jedi, especially in the time period. Probably in the Clone War they wouldn't have done as well. You know, the best Inquisitor probably is almost like Ventress. The Ventress I would think is more powerful. That's just my opinion, but, you know, I would think so.
The lightsaber for the Inquisitor is like a cheat mode lightsaber. It does a lot of things that Maul could do on his own. To have a weapon that cheats those abilities and makes up for a lack of ability in some ways, you know, is very representative of who he is.
So it seems like the Darksiders who are in charge of the galaxy, the Emperor and Vader, are spreading some of that power out, but they're not giving the sort of full abilities that they have to this lower class of underling.
The 8th brother easily defeated Ezra at the end of Season 2, and gave Kanan difficulty, getting the drop on him multiple times. The 5th brother is the physically strongest of the Inquisitors, matching Zeb and easily defeating him once using the Force. He might have the most raw Force power too, and was able to sense Ezra when the 7th couldn't. The 7th sister is much more intelligent though, and more skilled as well, doing far better than the 5th brother in their fight against Ahsoka. On top of that, she has seeker droids that help her in combat, which allowed her to take the advantage over Season 2 Kanan. The Grand Inquisitor, by his very name, confirms he's the best the Inquisitors have to offer. He continuously got the better of Kanan all the way up to the end of Season 1. He proved he was superior to the Jedi in physical strength, force power, and skill. Even with Ezra jumping in, the Grand Inquisitor seemed superior, but after Kanan thought Ezra died and had nothing left to fear, he vastly improved and got the better of the Grand Inquisitor. Now the question is if this was a temporary boost, or if Kanan permanently surpassed the Grand Inquisitor. A comic indicates that it was permanent, but Kanan did consistently have problems with the weaker Inquisitors in Season 2. Also, if you want to count Force visions, the Jedi version of the Grand Inquisitor seemed like he might have had the edge over Season 2 Kanan, but when Kanan picked up his second saber, he started pushing him back and only got knocked down after another Temple Guard stepped in. So overall, I think Season 2 Kanan is definitely in this tier, which is backed up by him being knighted. But he might not be above the Grand Inquisitor unless he's in the zone or using 2 lightsabers. After getting blinded, Kanan initially became weaker after distancing himself from the Force, and it was confirmed he felt fear again. But he overcame that at the beginning of Season 3 and arguably became even better than ever.
It's a make or break moment. You quit trying completely because it's too hard, or you accept the reality that you're in. To have your sight taken away and to feel like half the man you used to be is not going to be something that's easy for him. It's definitely going to be a process, and if he comes through, I guarantee you he'll be a stronger Jedi for it.
However, it seems his lack of sight still might have been a hindrance as he was disarmed by Rook and straight up defeated by Proach. Due to these anti-feats, I felt he wasn't worthy of being bumped up to the low Master tier. Speaking of the low Master tier, this tier is for characters on the level of an average Jedi Council member. Jupas are massive underground worms that considered Zeb a snack. Big Bongo is an extraordinarily large one and needed to be taken out by a walker cannon despite Kanan being right there. The smaller sized Purgle are still quite large and have the capability of obliterating TIE fighters when smashing into them. They can tank TIE fighter fire as well. Purgles are more intelligent than most creatures, can fly, and even jump to hyperspace. The 5th brother and 7th sister working together were able to easily overcome Kanan. So working together, they would have to be at least a tier above him and themselves individually. With their combined force power, they can hold back a small ship and lift the Jedi Temple on Lothal. The mid-master tier has 2 versions of Kanan, though I will admit these placements are a bit more subjective. Kanan, after initially being blinded, let the Force flow through and guide him to defeat Maul. I don't think that actually means he's better than Maul in this state, as Maul was underestimating Kanan, and it's my theory that Maul went for the punch because he thought Kanan was listening to the sound of his saber to block him, so he went for a silent punch. But it was not sound Kanan was using, it was the Force. So he countered the punch, which led to Maul tripping over a petrified body and falling off the pyramid. Right after that, Kanan went down on one knee. So I think if those stage hazards weren't there, and Maul could have continued the fight, the former Sith would have adapted, and Kanan would have been worn down and overpowered. Also, here's an explanation from Kanan's voice actor on why Maul lost.
And that comes through, obviously, not just us, that's Dave, and his direction and his design of the scenes, and not having this, like, epic lightsaber fight between Maul and Kanan, but having it be this sort of Rey Force Awakens moment where the Force takes over, not the Jedi. Right. The Force takes over. Kanan versus the Inquisitor, that's Kanan releasing his fear, releasing attachment, and sort of being like water, like Bruce Lee would say. This is a Force overpowering moment, because let's not BS ourselves. He's blind, but his senses weren't like, boom, okay, we're good. I can hear everything. I can sense everything around me. Everything is perfect in 16 seconds. Nah, Superman can't do that. So for that moment between the two of them, that's a Force explosion, as I would describe it, where Kanan is not in control of that. That is the Force dictating what's going to happen to this Jedi, like it did with Rey in Force Awakens. When people go, that's bullcrap, how could she beat him? She's not swinging the blade proficiently. Yeah, exactly. She's swinging it like a psychopath, and the Force explosion within her, which the Force needed to do to rebalance the universe, which it does in every single movie, it's not controlling her, but it's motivating her moves. It's not protecting her, but it's helping her protect herself in a way that's beyond her. And that's what happened to Kanan in that moment.
Kanan at the moment of his death used everything he had to hold back an explosion from a massive fuel pod, while simultaneously saving Hera, Ezra, and Sabine. I don't think anyone should have a complaint with this moment being Kanan at his best. If 2 is better than 1, then 3 is better than 2. So the 5th brother, 7th sister, and 8th brother working together should go a tier above the Inquisitor duo. The 8th brother thought the 3 of them would be enough for Ahsoka and Kanan together, and they were holding their own until Maul arrived. The High Master tier is where we start to get into the heavy hitters. Formerly Darth, now just Maul, was getting the better of 3 Inquisitors at the same time, without much issue, so I think it's fair to put him in the tier above. When it was one-on-one, Maul could casually force stomp and kill the 7th sister, so I would say that's at least a 2-tier gap. Likewise, the 8th brother was quickly forced into a retreat from the former Sith's assault. This is the tier I had him at his peak during the Clone Wars, and I don't think there's any evidence Maul significantly improved or declined.
The thing I'm particularly interested in is Darth Maul, who is back, who is still a force to be reckoned with, as powerful and as crafty as ever.
Ahsoka easily defeated the 5th brother and 7th sister, never actually being in any danger against them.
She's never really in jeopardy, Ahsoka, in that fight.
This would put her at least a tier above the duo. Her most impressive feat is of course her epic battle with Darth Vader. Dave makes it clear she would lose to Anakin.
1-to-1, could Anakin Skywalker defeat Ahsoka? Yeah, absolutely he could, because he taught her. You know, when you get to Ahsoka, she's very powerful because of her relationship to Anakin Skywalker.
So I would say Anakin by the time of Revenge of the Sith would definitely beat this Ahsoka. You can argue Maul should go above her, as he performed better against the Inquisitors and was directly implied to be more powerful than her.
They will also have to divide their forces.
And let me guess, Ezra goes with you? No thanks.
It is the logical choice.
But on the other hand, Dave Filoni said the entire Rebels team felt nobody but Vader or the Emperor during that time could match Ahsoka blow for blow. There's also the fact that a teenage Ahsoka already got the better of Maul once before, so this much wiser and more experienced Ahsoka should have an even easier time. Here's some statements from the Rebels team about Ahsoka's growth.
We finally get to see Ahsoka in her prime in this episode. How has she grown as a fighter since she left the Order in the Clone Wars?
Ahsoka has a fighting style that is similar to where we left her in terms of having the two blades, but she's definitely much more in control. She's less impulsive. It may be less flashy, but it's certainly more impactful.
She's extremely skilled. And I think over the years, she's probably had the opportunity to hone her abilities, but there hasn't been as much day-to-day ongoing battling as she was doing in the Clone Wars. So you could say on some level, while she's become more measured, her growth is more spiritual in nature.
So based on that, I think being a single tier above her Season 7 iteration makes the most sense. We do see Maul and Ahsoka fight for a short period in Rebels, and neither one of them has the clear advantage. So I think arguing their placement either way is fine. But my money's on Maul choking again. The peak Master Tier is the highest level most Force users could ever hope to achieve. An honorable mention goes out to the larger Purgles known as Purgle Ultra. They have the mass needed to severely damage and even destroy Star Destroyers. They can also grab their target and bring them into hyperspace with them. It's hard to say exactly where they should belong on this list, but based on comic feats I'll go over in future lists, I believe they would likely go below Vader. Ben Kenobi was able to defeat Maul in 3 moves, so of course he goes at least a tier above him. It should be noted that fight was meant to mimic a samurai fight, and Filoni brought up how good sword fighters don't have long duels. So taking that into consideration, the strength gap might not be as big as it seems. Here are some other statements about the duel.
When you've fought someone many times and are faced off, you kind of know each other's moves. So if you think about it, the build-up to this confrontation and the actual lightsabers hitting each other is actually longer, because they're basically playing it out in their heads. And the amazing thing is the move that Maul tries after the initial exchange, he actually attempts the move that killed Qui-Gon Jinn. He tries to basically bash him with the hilt.
If you talk to a lot of people that sword fight, they'll tell you people that are very good don't have long fights. It's very quick. And so that scene, it's an homage to the Seven Samurai. I think on one level people would be excited to see another prolonged lightsaber fight, but I just never really saw the confrontation that way, because to do that is to say the characters don't have growth. Yes, it's exciting as an audience member, but it's not a really believable thing. The storytelling has to evolve.
Like for Maul, seeing Obi-Wan in the desert is like a victory. He's like, oh, you're nothing. You're like me. And Obi-Wan's like, actually, no, I'm nothing like you. Because Maul hasn't experienced any personal growth. He hasn't gotten over anything. He hasn't grown except, you know, in his anger and his need for revenge. So you're trying to convey all of that. And part of it was just seeing the samurai intention, though, and like the hands on the sabers, the footwork of Maul, trying to convey that Maul is actually intense and over-primed for this fight. And Obi-Wan's just very zen. He's very in the middle of it. It didn't feel like Maul if he doesn't get a shot at it at all. So that it's block, then he goes for that move. That's where I decided to put that move in.
The move that took down Qui-Gon.
Yeah, because then Obi-Wan could
time.
slice it, because then that also visually tells the story that Obi-Wan paid attention. You know, and that moment was kind of put into his brain, and then he could defeat it. That, again, it shows a progression from master to apprentice, that Obi-Wan then later could defeat something that Qui-Gon couldn't.
Filoni does straight up say he doesn't think Maul's as good as Kenobi, to the point he can't even continuously parry him, so I would say that backs up the at least 1 tier gap. Darth Vader was far too powerful of a force, no pun intended, for Kanan and Ezra. It took Ahsoka to challenge him, but even then she was clearly out of her depth, and would have been killed if it hadn't been for time-traveling shenanigans. Maul admitted he couldn't beat Vader alone, and his voice actor Sam Witwer also confirmed a fight between them wouldn't turn out well for Maul.
But the thing is, with Darth Vader, or Darth Sidious, Maul would be in serious trouble. Serious trouble.
Yeah, he fought Sidious with his brother, and that didn't go well. So Solo.
Yeah, that would be really bad. But I mean, on the other hand, out in the galaxy, away from those guys, he is one of the only. Hell, I mean, I guess he's the only classically trained Force user that's out there right now.
He's Darth freaking Maul. He's like number 3 on the power charts, man.
So if if an Inquisitor comes across him, the Inquisitor's in trouble. You know, anyone that's half trained or, I mean, Vader's going around wiping out the Jedi, right? At this point, he's facing people like Ezra, where he's just knocking them aside like they're nothing, which has to give the Emperor a good bit of confidence that they did a good job in wiping these guys out. That the only signs of resistance are these children of the Force and these half-trained apprentices that are just nothing. But Darth Maul is an interesting threat because he was classically trained by the Sith. It's a rarity.
Though it is strange that Maul turned on his teammates knowing that Vader just showed up. So maybe Maul was more confident than he let on. When it comes to comparing Vader to Kenobi, we know Vader loses to Ben in the Kenobi show, but he beats him in Episode 4. So at this point, a fight between them could go either way. Vader has more feats in Rebels, so I put him above his former master. The Grand Master tiers for the top Force users in the galaxy. The Bendu is some sort of ancient Force entity that resides in the middle of the Force, being able to use both the dark and light. When angered, the Bendu turned into a storm and was doing some good damage to Thrawn's forces. His lightning destroyed AT-ATs and an A-Wing, but it failed to take out the Ghost, and ended up being shot down. He was arguably killed by Thrawn and became one with the Force, though he also may have just teleported away. It isn't made completely clear.
I'm always looking for ways to express the Force and how Jedi are interacting with it, and he's kind of in some ways like a personification of it. He's also, I think, in the end, humored by Thrawn's notion that Thrawn could somehow destroy Bendu, because Bendu doesn't play that way. Bendu's just, he's a little beyond what Thrawn could handle.
The only thing directly comparing the Bendu to anyone in-universe is in the Thrawn Alliances novel, where Vader says the creature's power pales in comparison to the Emperor's. So this should confirm the Bendu goes below Palpatine. But Vader does not mention himself, so you can argue this means Vader doesn't hold himself above the Bendu. But to be fair to Vader, surviving the explosion on Malachor was much more impressive than being shot down by AT-ATs. There are some out-of-universe statements comparing the Bendu to the Mortis gods, so he could be argued to be on a similar level to them.
He represents something that is immaterial and also bigger than all of us. And I think it's important to keep that perspective on the drama that's unfolding.
But you need a character that kind of is a bit beyond the characters that you have, that knows vastly more, but that is not going to solve their problems, that's going to push them in the right way. And Bendu does it for all of them, including Thrawn.
But in-universe statements take priority over out-of-universe ones.
How so?
And these out-of-universe statements aren't as clear-cut. Also, you could just argue at this time Palpatine surpassed the Mortis gods.
What the Emperor might be after in terms of furthering his own power. Not just about taking over control of the galaxy and ruling with order, but what other devious things he might be wanting to discover that sort of secure him as the ultimate power in the universe.
The top spot in the galaxy goes to Emperor Palpatine. Ahsoka could barely hold back his Force fire, needing Season 4 Ezra to help her just to survive. The duo then had to run for their lives and barely got away. The difference between how Ahsoka did against Vader and Palpatine is very clear, and I think it warrants a tier gap between the two Sith. That's the end of my Star Wars Rebels Strength and Power tier list. Use the Force to hit the like and subscribe buttons, or just use your mouse. There are more Star Wars lists to come, and unless you have the Force, you might miss them. So really, if you haven't subscribed already, you really need to subscribe. Do it.